Guys, you best know some of these fandoms, because if not, your geek is weak. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are rounding out Geek Week by talking about my top 10 favorite fandoms. Now, in thinking about my top 10 fandoms, I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what's the definition of a fandom? So I looked it up, and here's what it says. The fans of a particular person, team, fictional series, etc., regarded collectively as a community or subculture. That's broad. There could literally be a fandom for anything or anyone. I mean, it really just takes a group of people who are like, we really like this, and now we're a community of people who really like this. So I'm going to stick with, for this list, what we naturally think of when we think of fandoms. Mostly movies and TV shows. It could expand into, comics or books, whatever it might be, but usually they're in movies and TV shows anyway. And pretty much for, fictional series. It's not really going to be for any person or team or anything. Unless it's like Team Edward or Team Jacob. And in deciding what my ranking was, I took into account not only the actual series itself, but how the fandom, the community surrounding it, sort of affects my life and how big it is, how interesting it is, what the people are like in that fandom, everything in terms of that. So this may not match up, in terms of like my favorite movies or favorite shows overall, but taking those, into account as factors as well might switch it around a little bit. So as always, I have some honorable mentions. Percy Jackson, the Indiana Jones series, and the Chronicles of Narnia. At number 10, The Hunger Games. This one's probably a bit of a shock because it is a bigger fandom. I just find it, as much as I love it, and I do love it, that's why it's on my list, because the actual idea is so interesting. And everybody asking, what district are you? And so many of the quotable lines, of course, may the odds be ever in your favor. It's so low on my list because I just find it so odd that there's a whole fandom for a series about kids who kill each other. It's just, it feels weird. I get it because there is a young adult love triangle aspect to it. It's dystopian and everything. So there is all of those elements, but it's just really weird thinking about, I get so excited over the Hunger Games. And what's it about? Kids murdering each other. So, but it's still a pretty awesome series, specifically the first two. The third book is not my favorite, but I feel like the movies did a really great job adapting it from what they had, and they made some really powerful moments as well. At number 9, The Walking Dead. This is another one that it just feels weird to be a fandom of because it's really sad all the time and really disturbing a lot of the times, but it's just so freaking awesome. It is like one of my favorite series of all time. When I first watched it, I think there was a moment over, winter break, where I think for a week and a half, I just watched Walking Dead straight. I think I was watching like 7 episodes a night, and I think I watched 2.5 seasons in like 2 weeks. It was ridiculous, guys. But the not only just the zombies part of it, but the obviously who's gonna die in this episode, and like knowing these characters and their group and who's in the group, and I mean just where they go. And I'm gonna expand on this a little bit more when I do my In Defense of The Walking Dead, which will be coming up towards the end of the series, since the next season is going to be its last. But it's just so amazing. One of the only reasons that it's lower on my list is because, again, taking into account the fandoms itself, so many people that I talk to, I start talking about it and I want to talk about the great parts of The Walking Dead, and then they immediately start shitting on it, and it just gets tiring after a while. They're like, yeah, after season 6 it just got really, really bad. Okay, yes, it wasn't the best that it's ever been after season 6, but there's still a lot of great parts to it, and honestly, I'm just tired of people shitting on it as soon as I bring it up. Number 8, strap in for this one, Star Wars. Yes, it is lower on my list. I am obviously more of a fantasy than a sci-fi guy. However, Star Wars is iconic as hell, and it is still one of my favorite series. One of the reasons it's lower on my list is just because I feel like after a while, I don't want to say it got stale, but how much more is there we can do with this? And that's honestly with a lot of these on the list. But for me, after a while, like it felt like a lot of the movies were sort of the same thing. It is still, your basic, like super basic adventure sci-fi fantasy movie. And that's what's so much fun about it. And honestly, The Force Awakens is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love that movie. I loved getting to go to the theater and actually watch, the opening credits and the word crawl on the big screen in my lifetime. I just thought that was amazing. And the Star Wars fandom is just absolutely nuts. I mean, they go so hard. They know the animated series, they know the books, they know everything about the Star Wars universe. Personally, I think that I am actually more of a fan right now of the Mandalorian and the ones that are more side things and not so much the main plot of the trilogies, because let's be honest, the trilogy that we just got didn't go so well. I think it's time that they stop those for a little bit. At number 7, Disney, and I'm throwing in Pixar. This is, I mean, huge. Disney has gone from this company that made animated movies to an empire. It's quite literally, I mean, it's a monopoly. It's because it probably owns like half of my list. And that's part of the reason that it's a little bit lower, is just because I think they've gotten a little too big for their britches. They started putting out things that are more money grab. But Disney is such a huge part of my life. I mean, I love the music. I love the animated movies, especially the Renaissance, obviously. That era was just so great for the movies. I mean, my favorite 3 Disney animated movies, at least from, before the ones that we sort of have now that are more of the three-dimensional: Jungle Book, Aladdin, and Mulan. 3 of my favorites. I mean, they just come up with such great stories, always capture your imagination. I mean, Disney World, Disneyland, everything about it is just imagination and fun. Right now, I feel like it's more about money, which I think has really sucked the life out of so many people who love Disney. I feel like it's taken the fun out of it. At the heart of Disney, it's still one of my, the biggest things in my life from my childhood. Pixar as well. I mean, Pixar and Disney with their movies right now are absolutely killing it. They always surprise me. No matter what movie it is, I'm always like, this is going to be terrible, and then it's incredible. At number 6, Avatar: The Last Airbender. This fandom is just awesome. They're like the Hufflepuffs of fandoms. They're like, there's nothing wrong with this. There's no toxic people. There's no, oh, you're a fake fan, or you didn't read this or whatever. It's just like, yeah, we're cool, and we're just gonna sit there and watch all the other fandoms fight each other over who's the best character or whatever. Honestly, it's because of Uncle Iroh. Every single time there might be like a comment that's slightly negative towards somebody else in this fandom, they're just like, what would Uncle Iroh do? I mean, this fandom is just, it's so reflective of the series. They're quiet, they're peaceful, they're nice, they're fun, but they are so passionate. I mean, and it's insane considering this is a Nickelodeon show. This isn't like some big, major blockbuster franchise. This is just a Nickelodeon show, and it has such a fan base and such a fandom community because it was so incredibly done. I mean, it is literally one of my absolute favorite animated shows and just shows of all time, because it's honestly, I think, like the closest to perfect I've seen. At number 5, Game of Thrones. Now we're getting into the big ones. Their fan base is insane, and obviously it is because there has been a lot of activity going on in the last couple of years, a lot of intense emotions revolving that last season. There's been a lot of talk about Game of Thrones recently in the fandom, and honestly, that's just made it even better because people just have so much to talk about. But it's also because the show itself is incredible. Like the first 6 to, depending on who you are, 7 seasons are just almost flawless. I mean, not flawless, but they're really freaking good. I mean, I find Dungeons and Dragons stuff has always made for, just incredible characters and adventures and plots, and they just did everything they could possibly think of. I mean, obviously it's based off of George R. R. Martin's books, but the way it was shot, the way it was told, where it was like, only a little bit happening over so many episodes, just so you could get into these characters. It's insane. It's so complex, but it's so worth it to watch the whole thing, almost. The fandom itself is just so much fun as well, because, what house are you? And obviously just being able to come together and cry with each other over the ending. If it wasn't for that last season, this honestly could have been, and it still is, one of the best shows of all time, but it could have been maybe the best show of all time. At number 4, Supernatural. You guys know my feelings on Supernatural. I've done enough videos about it. Again, what I've mentioned before is that it's not even just the show. Supernatural is its fandom. They are basically synonymous at this point. You know, like I've talked about it before, but the fans just absolutely love Jensen and Jared and Misha and all of the cast. The cast just feels like they actually care about their fans, and you know, like the fandom affected the show. Go watch my video where I talk about this. I'll put it up here so you can click on it and watch it later, just because I talked about it, basically all of that in that video. But it rings true, especially for this video, that the fandom is so integral to that show, and it just became such a part of people's lives, and no matter what it did, people were going to love it. Whether or not it was great at times, it really took that community aspect and just made it fun for people. At number 3, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This quickly rose to the top of my fandoms list in the last few years. I hadn't really watched most of them until 2016 when Civil War came out. By that point, I had seen the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think Age of Ultron. And just because they were the big ones. Then I watched Civil War, and it was like, now I'm into it. I'm going to watch some of the other little ones, you know, here and there, little ones. And then I just, no matter how many times I watch these movies, they're like candy. These movies are like candy. They're just so much fun to watch. They're so comforting, but they're so well done and emotional. It's basically Avatar, but in like live action. Again, they're huge. It's almost like a little too much. Like, yes, I don't need to see Spider-Man on every lunchbox, but it's just amazing that they have 3 movies at this point and a few shows, and I'm still hyped. I cannot believe that there is a fandom out there that has 20 plus movies, and we still are like, what's next? I'm never gonna get tired of watching these. As long as they have the quality of the movies that they do, for the most part, I'm never gonna get tired of it. It's so much fun. And I love this series and the fandoms around it. I mean, just go watch reaction videos of just Endgame or Infinity War. You can't tell me that you weren't hyped by that. At number 2, or what I like to call 1.5, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. This really is like just this much farther away from my number 1. Whereas my number 1 I watch for comfort. Lord of the Rings I watch for comfort as well, but for more escapism comfort, because it's like Game of Thrones, but it's a lot more it's not as gritty. It's a lot more dramatic and whimsical, you know, and it's just, they're epic. And the Hobbits as well, maybe not as epic or, you know, whatever, but I mean, still super comforting for me. I still love that series to my core. I just want to go visit the Shire, please. A couple friends and I, we do a marathon every year of the extended versions of Lord of the Rings, and let me tell you what, that is a challenge, and it is so worth it. Not when I have to go to sleep, but it is so worth it, because it's just an epic series, and they're just so self-contained and so well done. I love it so much. It's like, right, it's basically almost tied with my number 1. Honestly, it should be, but my number 1 is Harry Potter. I don't think that's much of a surprise if you've ever watched any of my videos. And I've already done so many videos, you know, on the Harry Potter series, doing a review for each of the movies, and then a final video for my ranking of all of them, and then just a couple other videos on the side about the fandom as a whole. But this fan base is nuts. I've said that about a few others, but I mean, literally, I mean, it's in everything. It is literally in everything in my life. It is in everything I do, just about. I don't know, most of the friends I have is over that. It sounds like it's a little weird out of context. It does sound a little creepy, like, Matt, you can get a life. No, I mean, it's not like I watch them religiously like every single day, but it's a part of my childhood. It's a part of me. It's part of who I am, and, you know, who I am now. Not only is it such a good series, not only is it so well done, even though people are finding some problematics, you know, between the series itself and J.K. Rowling, obviously. It's people just love it so much. And again, the reaction videos, just go watch those. It'll hype you up. And I can't believe, like, when it comes to like icebreakers, with groups of people or whatever, kind of a question that they always go to is, what's your Hogwarts house? Literally, so many people I meet, a question of theirs is, oh, what house are you in? It's like an important thing. It's weird. This is like, what Hogwarts house are you in? I have to figure out what type of person you are. Like, this has literally become how we meet people. And at this point, there's really nothing new that the fandom brings, which is okay because, I mean, we've exhausted every possible theory, every possible detail to find, at least from what I've seen on Facebook and, things like that. They're never going to not be fans. They're never going to not be people who are so intensely in love with this series that they will dress up as a sorting hat and accidentally fall down on the stage when they run up the stairs at the Senator Theater for the midnight showing of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. That did happen. I also want to throw in that this also includes Fantastic Beasts, which isn't over yet, but I do love the first movie. I like the second movie, but I will talk about that when the third one comes out. It still is just so magical, and I mean, honestly, throughout the whole Harry Potter series, I wasn't sure who my favorite character was. Maybe Dobby, maybe Lupin, maybe Hagrid. If nothing else, Fantastic Beasts has given me my favorite character of the Harry Potter universe, and that is Newt Scamander. So I love that movie. It's so much fun. Well, that is my definitive ranking of my top 10 fandoms. What are your favorite fandoms, and what's your Hogwarts house? What district are you in? What camp cabin are you in for Percy Jackson? What type of bender are you? What house would you be in for Game of Thrones? Stark, Lannister, Targaryen? What color lightsaber would you have? Who's your favorite Lord of the Rings character? What superpowers would you want? What's your favorite Disney movie? What's your favorite Disney song? And if you could pick out Negan's bat, would you? Be honest. Thanks for watching all of my Geek Week videos. I hope you liked them. Be prepared for next year's Geek Week, which I'm really super excited about already. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and may the odds be ever in your favor. I'll see you guys later. One time in my senior year of high school, one of my teachers was talking about something to do with stories because I was taking a creative writing class. And he was talking about word nerds and number nerds, which I really thought was cool. But then he was talking about just nerds in general, and he singled me out because he knew me, and said something to the effect of, Mr. McDonald, he loves word nerd stuff. He loves stories. So, every time he sees something about Harry Potter, he goes, "Gah." And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong. Damn.